Hey everybody, welcome back to round two of our voter integration or voter engagement training, where we're going to start talking to you about how we actually vote. So this section will cover early voting and all the many ways that you can cast a ballot before election day.
So I like to tell everyone, early voting is great. I'd encourage everyone to use it. And there are a lot of reasons that it's just a much simpler and better thing to do, because if you're voting early, you can get it out of the way. You don't have to worry about, things coming up. Maybe it's rainy and cold and you don't feel like going out, in November. You never know what the weather's going to be. Maybe you get sick or your kids get sick. Maybe there's something wrong with your car. You just don't know what the situation is. And if you vote early, you can just sort of plan for it, get it out of the way, and then not have to worry about your ballot counting. So early voting will begin on April 10th for the primary. So it started yesterday. We're taping this April 11th. So the second day of early voting. It will also, in the general elections, begin October 10th. And again, the ID is actually much simpler if you're voting early. You just need to provide the last 4 digits of your social security number. For a lot of people, voting on election day can be difficult because they may have issues with having the correct ID. They may not have a utility bill, or maybe you're a student, you're out of state, you don't have an Ohio driver's license, or you're elderly. So for a lot of populations, it's just easier to vote early.
Totally, and these are the early voting hours leading up to the May 8th primary. So on the weekdays, there are actually different hours depending on the time period. So from April 10th to April 27th, weekdays 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can go to your early vote location. From April 30th to May 4th, the time is extended to 7 p.m. So from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., the early voting polls will be open. And the day before the election, early voting ends at 2 p.m. And then on the weekends, there are 2 weekend days where you can vote early, and these are really, really great times to get out. Folks won't have work, kids won't have school, so it's easier for a lot of folks to sort of make plans to vote early on these days, and particularly on that Sunday for congregations to get together and go to the polls and vote as one. So the time periods for that are Saturday, May 5th, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can vote early, and that Sunday, May 6th, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m.
And these are the early voting hours for the general election in November. It's the same idea. There's going to be weekday voting from 8 to 5, October 10th through the 26th. Some extended evening hours beginning October 29th to November 2nd from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. The Monday before, it'll be 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. 2 Saturdays of early voting, which is wonderful. The last 2 weekends before Election Day, October 27th and November 3rd, the Board of Election will be open from 8 to 4, and there will be one Sunday, the Sunday before, on November 4th from 1 to 5, and that's when a lot of the polls, Sunday congregations will be organizing people to get out to the polls, and it's just really fun. You see a lot of people. People are pretty good-natured about, even if there are lines, standing in line. So it's just a great time.
Another really great way to vote early, if you don't go and vote early in person, is you can actually mail in your ballot. You can vote absentee by mail. To do so, you have to request absentee mail. You have to actually request your ballot, though the Secretary of State will automatically send an absentee request form, the ballot application, to active voters. In 2016, 1 in 7 voters, 1 in 7 Ohio voters did not receive a vote by mail application. So if you would like to receive this and vote from the comfort of your own home, or if you have a family member who is ill and they can't make it because they're in the hospital, or for whatever reason will have difficulty voting on election day, this is a great way for folks to do that, just by calling your Board of Elections, or you can even download the form from myohiovote.com. And the one thing is, if you request an absentee ballot, you must vote with that ballot. You cannot show up to the polls the day of and vote a regular ballot. You can't actually even bring your absentee ballot to the polls that day. You have to vote. You use the absentee ballot and send it in the mail. And if you do that, you'll have to vote provisionally.
Yeah. So just to clarify, the rules around absentee ballot voting can vary from year to year. So this year, if you're looking to vote by mail for the primary, you will not receive an absentee ballot request, but you will receive one for the fall. So that's why it's confusing and people are like, I don't know what to do. Go to myohiovote.com. You can always get an application there. So there are some deadlines. If you request a ballot, the technical deadline to do so is, for the primary, would be May 5th at noon. But I would tell people, of course, do not wait that long. It's basically 3 days before the election. And you have to keep in mind the board would have to process your request and then get a ballot out to you that you would then have to return very, very quickly. So it's practically impossible to do. Don't wait. If you know you'd like to request a ballot, go ahead and request one. And that way you have plenty of time to vote that ballot. If you want to return it, you can do it in a couple ways. You can postmark it, so drop it off in the mailbox, but make sure it has a postmark Monday, May 7th. If you don't want to do that, or somehow you missed the deadline, you can hand deliver those ballots to the Board of Elections. You have until close of polls on Tuesday, May 8th, 7:30 to get those hand delivered. Just to keep in mind, you cannot take those ballots to the polls. They have to go to the Board of Elections. So for some people, that could mean an extra drive. So just be mindful of that when you're thinking about how you want to vote and return those ballots.
And it's very similar deadlines and rules for the general election. Similarly, you'll have sort of up to November 3rd at noon, just 3 days before the election, to request your ballot. But like Camille said, we're not sure that it will get to you in time for you to actually vote, turn it back in, and all that. So do it early. And this is, like we said, this is a great way for folks to make sure your vote's counted, especially if you're working with folks who are elderly or in the hospital, or for whatever reason will have difficulty going to vote early in person or going to vote on election day.
So there's a great tool on myohiovote.com that will allow you to track your ballot. And a lot of people just don't even realize that. And so it's helpful because sometimes, you put in a request and you think, oh, it's been a while, I haven't heard anything, I wonder where it is, did they have a record of it, should I call them back? You can go online and you can see a record of your request and where it is in the process. So that way you don't have to wait too long to have the Board of Elections reissue your ballot. I know there was an instance in 2016 where they sent some mail all the way to Michigan and it didn't get to folks in Toledo in time. And so this is a great way to be proactive about your ballot and making sure that they have a request and that everything is going to get to you in time.
So that sort of brings us to the end of the early voting rules and regulations. And if you have any additional questions about the early vote process, feel free to reach out to Camille or myself. At Ohio Voice, my email is james@ohvoice.org.
And I'm Camille, CAMILLE, @ohvoice.org. And again, any early voting questions you should be able to locate on myohiovote.com, but we're happy to help you.
That's right. And we will end this session right here, and we'll pick up another session on Election Day voting very soon.
Thanks.